Every mental world visited in the story gives Raz the task of unraveling both the mental states and history of the others. Arguably, the most intricate mind among them belongs to the actress Gloria von Gouten. In the outer courtyard of Thorney Towers, Raz finds her in the garden putting on a play for some potted plants. The center of the glass dome allows the moonlight to shine down upon her, as if she were standing in a spotlight. During this period, she has a pleasant demeanor, albeit a bit grandiose. However, after Raz picks up the trophy, she turns violent. As soon as this scene ends, we are given our task, to help Gloria control her mood swings. While the nature of her condition will be fully realized upon entering her mind, there are a few things we can determine before then. Firstly, her mood changes have one identifiable cause. Trauma triggers are psychological stimuli that cause the individual to recall past traumatic experiences. They can be simple things such as a certain smell, a piece of clothing, a movie, or, in Gloria's case, walking out of the spotlight. We witness her friendly demeanor shift into a violent outburst as soon as the former actress walks off her imaginary stage. Her words sound like the trauma she experienced is related to some form of persecution. The nature of this will be explored later. The second observation we can make of Gloria is something consistent across various mood disorders. That is, emotional dysregulation. This is generally defined as poorly modulated emotional responses. When the brain cannot process an emotion properly, it uses various methods to work it out. These can present itself as emotional outbursts on both the depressed and angry end of the spectrum. Extreme perfectionism, anxiety, conflicts in interpersonal relationships, substance abuse, and other forms of self-harm. Any parent out there who has witnessed their child throw themselves onto the ground at the supermarket, screaming and crying because they didn't get the candy they wanted, knows this intimately. As we age, our ability to regulate emotions generally improves. However, sometimes this is not the case. This is why emotional dysregulation is generally associated with early childhood trauma such as emotional neglect and abuse. It can also be related to a traumatic brain injury or low levels of validation, such as feelings of being ignored, rejected, or judged. As we travel through her mind, pay attention to these symptoms and how they relate to her life. With this in mind, let's take a look inside Gloria's head. Based upon her profession, it is no surprise that her mindscape is set on a theater stage. Mental cobwebs can be found covering the entrance, suggesting her mind is trapped here. While the stands are filled with figments of people in the audience, in reality, the stands are empty. No one is watching her anymore. Outside in the garden, she painted faces on the potted plants, mimicking her desire to be seen perform. Gloria's theater is one of the only examples where the individual does not appear inside the mind. Instead, her psyche is divided into different characters. Becky's role as the director is to maintain order within Gloria's mind, but she is rapidly losing control. She is the rational aspect of Gloria, stressed at her inability to control what happens here. While in those moments of clarity, we reflect upon and grow frustrated with our inability to control our own emotions. Bonita Soleil is described as the spirit of Gloria's youth, the pure essence of her inner drive and performance talent. However, this sunlight has dimmed, and Bonita hides in the changing room, listening to a weeping soundtrack. This is because Jasper, the gluttonous critic, has verbally harassed her, shattering the confidence she once had. He is the voice in the back of our heads who whispers self-destructive thoughts. Hearing it from others is one thing, but when we hear it in our own voice, our inner sunshine may hide in a dark corner, afraid to come out. Jasper has another personality though. Instead of just whispering, the Phantom engages in active sabotage. When Raz convinces Bonita to come out and perform, the Phantom acts up, further convincing her to remain hidden. When setting out on a goal, it is common to create self-imposed roadblocks, whether this be consciously or unconsciously. Jasper and the Phantom creates a self-fulfilling prophecy that makes Gloria spiral into a dark headspace. The worse it gets, the more power the inner critic becomes. Eventually, Jasper becomes too big to ignore, usurping control of the theater from Becky. Under normal circumstances, our personal critic isn't a bad thing. The purpose of constructive criticism is to recognize our shortcomings so that we can correct them in the future. On the other hand, the purpose of destructive criticism is to harm the subject. The final figures in the level are the flower children who act out scenes from Gloria's childhood. They are the main focus of the level's design and progression. While attaining new scripts, Raz works his way through Gloria's past. Some memories good, some bad. Above the stage, the Psyche deck can flip the mood lighting from happy to depressed. This symbol here is the best representation for Gloria's bipolar disorder or manic depression. It involves rapid mood swings from a manic or hypomanic state and depressed states. It is obvious that Gloria is experiencing a manic episode when Raz first meets her. The state of mania tends to amplify emotions as seen by her two contrasting moods, from an extreme self-confidence when in the light to violence when out of it. Both exist in the same manic episode. The trauma trigger of being out of the spotlight flipped the emotion in question though. As mentioned earlier, emotional dysregulation is common in mood disorders, including this one. The question is, what emotions was Gloria struggling with that led her to be pushed to this fragile state? For that, let's look at her past. Please be advised that while most of this information is found in the game, some supplemental pieces are from the LiPo backstory document. I will only include details that complement what is seen in Psychonauts. Gloria was born out of wedlock to the performer Gloria von Gouten. She kept the identity of the father a secret from everyone. After learning that she would raise Gloria alone, the Puritan media turned on her. The fame she was used to dried up and producers stopped casting her. During this period, Estrella's manager foresaw his own financial security being threatened. Before Gloria was born, he begged her to have an abortion, and when that failed, requested she put the baby up for adoption. Years later, she eventually agreed to send her to Hagatha's home school for girls. Before dropping her off, her mother promised to send letters so that they can stay in touch. However, Estrella's manager lied about sending them, causing Gloria to spend her formative years believing that her mother threw her away like an unwanted responsibility. This made her time at the school that much more difficult. Upon abandoning her daughter, Estrella's career ramped back up again. Gloria's cruel training, as seen in the vaults of the same name, involved severe corporal punishment. While being trained in dance, singing, and acting, the students were whipped and psychologically tormented whenever they made a mistake. Gloria began to retreat into her personal fantasies to cope, one of which involved her father appearing as a knight to slay the dragon holding her captive and rescuing her. During this period, Gloria von Gouten fired her manager after learning he was embezzling money from her. At that time, she decided to go back and reclaim her now 18-year-old daughter. The play being put on by the Flower Children shows this scene. However, in Gloria's fantasies, her mother appears in a magical balloon to take her away from this horrifying school. For the next few years, the mother and daughter traveled the world. Gloria's talents on the stage quickly eclipsed her mother, who was shoved out of the spotlight once again. In retaliation, Estrella became cruel, telling her that she was only famous because she is younger and that once they are tired of her, she will be discarded like garbage. She also shattered Gloria's image of her knightly father by telling her that he was only a lowly gardener. To get away from the abuse, she went to Paris. During the extended production, Estrella broke into her old theater and committed suicide by jumping from the catwalks. Gloria had suffered some form of abuse her entire life. Between the cruel torture at Hagatha's home and the spiteful words from her bitter mother, the shock of hearing of her mother's death destroyed her. Gloria's sanity began to unravel, experiencing panic attacks and severe anxiety. Thoughts ran through her mind, wondering if her mother's suicide was her own fault. If she hadn't have left her, she'd still be alive. This guilt became too much for her to handle. She began tripping during dance numbers or forgetting her lines during a live performance. Critics who once praised her became cruel over her frequent mishaps, leading to the creation of Jasper within her mind. During one production, she was lifted up over the catwalks and froze. The image of being in the same place her mother was when she jumped acted as a trauma trigger for her. After being brought down, she ran into the changing room to cry. An aspect of her named Bonita Soleil never left that room. From here, she found herself being taken to Thorney Towers Asylum, which only exacerbated her condition due to the presence of Cytanium. At the end of the day, the plot of this world is designed to help Gloria deal with her overactive internal voice, which is the root of her mood swings. The first step is recognizing the existence of the phantom in the first place. This involves realizing there is something in our head that should be investigated. After, Raz must unmask the phantom, identifying both the root of the trauma and the triggers that act as a catalyst for a manic episode. By determining what they are, one can take active steps to avoid them or confront them. One of Gloria's triggers was being removed from the spotlight. This created psychotic delusions where she believed Raz to be her mother.
Would you like to hear the story of how I won that award, dear boy? Or are you trying to take it because you don't think I deserve it?
No, you deserve it.
I didn't take anything from you. I didn't ask to be famous. I just wanted you to love me. Hey!
What?
You're supposed to be dead! Ah!
This simple thing reminded her of being forced off the stage. Between the guilt over her mother's death, her own failing career, the destructive criticism from those in the audience, all of these mixed together to make a hurricane of emotion she could not properly regulate. The avatar of all this evolved into Jasper and the Phantom, something Gloria must confront. The confrontation of the inner critic is the final chapter of this world, and acts as a lesson as well. Over the course of this battle, Jasper verbally demeans Raz while using destructive words as ammunition. If we stop and pay attention to everything he is saying, it is easy to get distracted from the fight. We must tune out Jasper and focus solely on the goal of defeating him. During the battle, Gloria must learn how to tune out the personal critic that led her to hide the inner sunshine away. In doing so, the large man shrinks to the size of a popcorn box, his voice shrill and ludicrous. In other words, a form that is not only manageable, but laughable. I can only imagine that Gloria questioned how she allowed such a pitiful thing control her for all these years. In the end, Becky resumes control of the production, and Bonita finally takes the stage. The ability to regulate one's emotions can be a difficult task. Identifying and avoiding one's trauma triggers is a good first step. So is confronting the root of our emotional turmoil. A philosopher once said that the reason newborns come into the world crying is because everything they feel is literally the worst pain of their lives. With time and life experience, they become acclimated to it. That which once caused them suffering no longer causes distress. The same is true for our ability to manage our mood and emotions. Gloria was able to confront the source of her own distress, and in doing so, strengthened her to the point of managing her situation. Now she's ready to leave the dilapidated ruins of Thorney Towers. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please drop a like, as it really does help out the channel. If you would like updates on new uploads, feel free to subscribe or follow me on Twitter. Have a good day, and peace be with you all.